Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
So this is where we are in our journey of Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. Here we are, week 6, and we are letting go. That's the very next step in the journey of creating a new earth. What does that look like? Are you ready to be free? Do you want to be free? Or, you're kind of used to things the way that they are in yourself, to be free of what last week Reverend Karen talked about, the pain body. The pain body that can show up when we're triggered, like when things go differently than we rehearsed. That can show up. What is that? Now I'm starting to feel different. I'm having sensations in my body. I'm having thoughts in my mind that are making me think some things, judgment maybe. Things that show up when things show up that we would rather not have experienced, not what just happened was how it's handled so smoothly. Thank you, David. And so the good news, there's good news in this new earth material that Eckhart Tolle has brought to us. And the good news is that, yes, we have a pain body, and we can all be free of it. We can all be free of it, and that in our consciousness evolution, collectively, we are all moving in that direction of being free of it. That's the good news. And also that the pain body can be a catalyst for our awakening. So it could be a deterrent if we allow ourselves to just continue to be taken over by it. Or we can say, enough is enough. I don't want to live in suffering and pain and drama and trauma anymore. I'd like to be free. Amen? Be free tonight? Let's find out some more about that. As I think about the pain body, the song that keeps showing up in my mind is this song that it's been sung by the Supremes, but many other covers, and it's called You Keep Me Hanging On. You know that song? Set me free, why don't you, baby? Get out my life, why don't you, babe? Does that sound familiar? Because you don't really love me. Sing it if you know it. You just keep me hanging on. Right? Yes, we know it. Can you think about the pain bodies like that? It doesn't really love you, but it keeps you hanging on. Right? Set me free from that pain. So what is the pain body up to? What is it actually doing? What happens is it shows up, it takes over. It's like a hostile takeover, or like, when you're watching one of those criminal trial shows and they say it was temporary insanity. That's the plea. I killed him, but temporary insanity. Well, the pain body's kind of like that temporary insanity. It occupies your mind, it controls, it takes over, it distorts your thinking. You get into a lot of opposition and victim consciousness and disrupting your relationships, and it can be like a dark cloud that hangs over your energy field, and people can even feel it. When you walk into a room and you can feel like there was an argument here. I don't know what happened, but the energy feels like that energy that shows up. And it can make you reactive. Anything somebody says, then there's a defense mechanism that shows up. And it serves to increase your unhappiness. The more you're in the pain body, it feeds off of unhappiness. It feeds off of other people's unhappiness and yours, like misery loves company kind of thing. So if you are on trial and you get on the stand and you say, my pain body made me do it, is that a reasonable defense? Does it mean you're not responsible for your actions? Well, Eckhart Tolle says, yes, actually. Yes, because you've been possessed by your own pain body. It has taken over. It has hijacked your nervous system in this pain. And can you really be responsible when you're unconscious? Whether or not you're responsible, you are still subject to the consequences of your actions if you continue to live unconsciously. So we know that it is in our best interest to live consciously for ourselves and for each other. I had an experience of witnessing the pain body of someone I didn't know back on Christmas Eve. I was leaving the Christmas Eve services all high on the love and light of unity and our experience together with the candle lighting, and I was out at the corner of Richmond getting ready to turn on Fountain View, and there were a couple cars ahead of me, and then in the next lane there was a car that was up towards where the light was, and I saw this driver, this woman, I saw her eyes as she turned around with venom in her face. I could feel it. There's a few cars back in another lane. I could feel that woman's energy. I was like, this is not good, and I can't go anywhere. I tried to scoot my car over. I was like, the land goes up this way. I was thinking about if I could drive up over like the humps of the parking. It was crazy. She looked back, and she looked, I thought, at my car, but she was really looking back at the car behind me. She put her car in reverse, slammed on the gas, and hit the car behind me, and then drove off. Something happened there. I have to think she knew that person and was pretty ready for revenge, and they couldn't do anything. They were stuck, and it was like that energy of her anger and pain body. It took me a couple of days to really shake that off. I just kind of felt that experience, like just to see that it can be a huge kind of force of energy that takes over someone and can cause them to do things that you'd like to think in a calm, conscious state of mind, you'd never just hit somebody's car, no matter how angry you are at them. So that was just an experience I wanted to share with you of that kind of hostile takeover of what the pain body is like. Eckhart Tolle says when you live unconsciously, that you're actually living out of alignment with the evolutionary impulse of the universe. That the evolutionary impulse of the universe is that upward spiral of consciousness growing into more and more awareness and oneness, that oneness with God and with each other. But he also says from an absolute perspective, a higher perspective, really you can never be out of alignment with the flow of the universe. You just are thinking you are. You're acting as if you're in separation, but really you can never be. Every human unconsciousness and suffering is part of the evolution, he says. However, when you cannot stand the endless cycle of suffering anymore, you begin to awaken. Set me free. Set me free. I'm done with the endless cycle of suffering and pain, of the pain body. And what's really beautiful about the experience of awakening through the pain body is Eckhart Tolle tells us that there's spiritual power that's trapped in there because of the experiences that you've had, negative experiences that have caused you to create this pain body or to take on the pain body of your parents or the environment you were raised in, that there's power that's there. So when you break your identification with the pain body, the energy shifts. Your vibrational frequency shifts, and it's transmuted into presence. That pain, the energy is like unleashed to its pure form of presence, of God presence, right? Holy presence, the presence that we are. And the pain body can become a fuel for consciousness. So you may have noticed that many of the great spiritual teachers share that they went through an experience of addiction or abuse or some kind of great loss or tragedy, something that caused them such a deep pain that allowed them to have such a heavy pain body, so that when they became enlightened, it was all that energy lifted and became wisdom and love and shifted. I had a teacher when I came into Unity who was very inspirational to me, who had gone through the 12 steps. He was an alcoholic, and then now he became a licensed teacher and then a minister, and he encouraged us to take whatever trial that you're going through, whatever your struggle is, and allow it to become your testimony. You can allow it to become your greatest joy in that you're in your overcoming, and allowing that energy to be transmuted into divine power and light and love and being of benefit to the world. So how do we break free? Eckhart Tolle gives us some steps. So there's a process, a repeatable process. We love that in Unity, to be given a practical tool to follow. And he says, first you have to recognize that you have a pain body. So that's the ability to stay present to it, that here it is, and it's showing up, and I'm allowing myself to notice it, to be present to it, to not get caught up in the story of it, because it has a story. It has its victim story, right? And it can hook us back in. So being present to it, and to allow the influx of negative emotions that you may be experiencing to just feel them rather than to act on them or to get hooked in them, to feel them. And to feel them may not be as painful or as long enduring as they are making you feel like they could be, but it's just to be with them. And when you're able to be present with them, to witness them, that they can no longer control you. They can no longer control you, because now you're in presence rather than in the pain body. And when you've severed that link with the pain body and with your thinking, it begins to lose energy. It loses energy, the pain body. For most people, that doesn't happen the first time that you are working to sever that link between the thinking, between the pain body and your presence, that it takes time and practice. Because what happens, he explains, is that there's a part of your pain body that's like, okay, this isn't working this time, and it kind of hides back to where it was before it showed up, and then waiting for another trigger or a sudden situation, or certainly my own pain body, when I saw that person have that accident, showed up and was triggered in me as well. So there's that collective experience. So what are the triggers? What are triggers? So triggers are what allows the pain body to arise. It causes the pain body to arise. What is it? So it's certain situations that resonate with a certain kind of pain that we suffered in the past. So an example, if you have a trigger around money, around finances, it could be that as a child your parents fought about money and you picked up on their fear around money, and you developed a pain body that's triggered when financial issues arise. So see, there was an inciting incident or a recurring incidents, right, that created a pain body around a trigger, finances for example. There can be other issues. Physical abuse can be a trigger. Whatever it is for you, I think I've given enough of an idea where you can sense into what it is that when that shows up for you in your life, that type of situation, that type of person or topic, that it arouses that pain body So it's important to be aware of the triggers, and you can sense it before the pain body shows. Oh, there's that topic. That's a trigger for me, and know that, and that's part of that awakening consciousness. Eckhart Tolle shares a wonderful personal story about breaking the identification with the pain body. He tells an experience of his neighbor who came to him, and it was 11 o'clock at night. You can imagine, she woke him up, and she rang his doorbell, and her voice came over the intercom with a lot of anxiety. She said this, she said, "We need to talk, it's very important, please let me in." And his neighbor's name is Ethel. She's middle-aged. He says she's very intelligent and highly educated, and she also had a strong ego and a heavy pain body. See, Ethel had been a survivor of a concentration camp in Nazi Germany, and as an adolescent, she and many of her family members were there. Many of her family members died, but she was able to escape. She had that heavy pain body from that experience. So he let her in. She sat on his sofa, and she was very agitated. Her hands were trembling. She was just full of this experience of her pain body. She took out these letters and documents. She put them all over the sofa, all over the floor, and she showed them to him. And as he noticed her in all of this high, heavy energy, he knew that to be present to her, he had to be very centered, very aware, put aside judgment, to be in stillness without any mental commentary about what she was saying or experiencing, just really be with her, open and alert, intensely present, looking at her, really looking at her and taking her in. And this is what she said. The words just flew out of her mouth, and she said, "They sent me another disturbing letter today. They're conducting a vendetta against me. You must help. We need to fight them together." Now, hearing a lot of ringing. Should I change to that mic? Or is this okay? Is this okay? Is everybody hearing me okay? All right. So I'll go on with what she said. Their crooked lawyers will stop at nothing. I will lose my home. They are threatening me with dispossession. So she was afraid. Her safety was of the deepest concern. She was struggling with fear. And the situation was that there were some repairs that needed to be done on her property. She refused to pay the property managers because they had failed to make the repairs, and so they threatened to take her to court. And that was the whole situation and the subject of these letters. And Eckhart sat there for 10 minutes and listened until she told the whole story and got it all out. And he just was with her, and suddenly she just stopped talking. And she looked at the papers, and he says it was like she woke up from a dream. And she looked at him, and she said, "This isn't really important, is it?" And he said, "Not at all." "No, it isn't." And they just sat quietly for a while, and then she left. And she saw him the next day. And she said to him, "What did you do to me? Last night was the first night that I slept well in years. In fact, I slept like a baby." What happened there? What happened with Ethel? He just didn't react. He didn't confirm her story. He didn't play into it. He didn't feed into the pain body with any more emotion. But he held space. He wasn't just sitting there. He was holding a sacred and holy space for her to feel everything that she was feeling. And so we can do that and allow ourselves to break free. We can do it for ourselves. We can hold that space for ourselves to go through our experience and to be present to it and to have a bigger context around the content of what's showing up in the pain body. So breaking free of the pain body involves a willingness to be your broader self. Jesus said, "Be ye whole, even as your Father in heaven is whole." So you may have heard that before as "be ye perfect." But Eckhart tells us that this is actually a mistranslation of the Greek word that means whole. Be whole, which actually is who you are, is whole. Your divine nature, your true being, the presence that you are is already whole with nothing missing. And so can you just be? What we practiced in our meditation tonight, to be in the wholeness that you are, to observe the experience without attaching to it, without getting hooked into the story and the judgment, allowing it to be what it is and noticing it. And Eckhart says when you do that, when you allow yourself to be whole with or without the pain body, that is breaking free. Namaste.
What a great story about being able to transform this woman's anxiety just by sitting there and not even really saying anything. And gosh, wouldn't it be great if we do that for the world, right?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. We are in our meditations, in our presence, in our ministry. It reminds me of something I just read maybe yesterday that somebody was saying when they're confronting chaos or when they're witnessing chaos and drama, there's basically three reactions. One is jump in to the chaos, become part of the drama. The other one is leave, just get away. But then the third one is to be present to it, like you're saying, and be sort of just witness. Well, he was saying call it out and stop it, but we can say transform it. We could say, hold space for it, like you're talking about. And with our presence, we're like trees that take in the carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen, something nourishing and nurturing.
Right. So I'll just bring some resonance to what you just said there about how we hold it for the world. I remember in 1991, can that be somewhere in there, that there was that in my circle of friends, we were really putting a lot of energy in wanting to heal the Cold War. We're wanting to dismantle the Cold War. And there was a fair amount of angst around that, and we thought we were being proactive, and we thought we were also being of expanded mind and that sort of thing. And then lo and behold, there was a big shift that happened kind of suddenly. And whether it was causal or associative, whether it was a happy accident that it just happened in the timing of when my friends and I were kind of contemplating this, or it was a direct result of it, we held that our consciousness was holding vigil for the possibility of it. I experienced the same thing around gay marriage. We worked at it for years and years and years, and it just seemed like this forever toil, and it's not going to happen, and then amazingly, even then a conservative Supreme Court legalized it, and it's like, wow, how did that happen? So to me, I don't need evidence that the work we do creates that field whereby it's less bad than it would be otherwise. It's just the way I choose to live my life, and I hold it that, well, thank God we're kind of holding down the fort. Otherwise, who knows how it would just fly off the handle. To me, it's great if it's true, and kind of beside the point.
Yeah, we can make something so big and important. That's what I loved about that story that he shared, and just, is it really that important? And there are things that are important, certainly, but I imagine that she could easily have resolved that rather than been in all that pain. And how often is there a solution that's readily apparent? It's like, well, let me wallow in it for a while before I just move forward and do just what's needed to do, what's there to do.
It's momentum, right? We can easily get stirred up into other people's momentum and drama and victimhood, and And we can also just change the momentum. And I think also, of the value of spiritual community, that, like you were saying, you and your friends, like-minded, like souls, just being able to come together and experience and witness this together and have this type of space, I think is so valuable, because sometimes, people can feel like they're on their own, or they're, it's them against the whole world, and we're in this together.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that once there are certain moments when the pain body has exhausted its value, and the transformation, the liberation from it is like a permanent reset. You made reference to sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes you kind of have to inch toward it, and it takes a while, and it might be a process, and that's true too. But I actually think once I sort of got the distinctions that Eckhart Tolle was describing, I think there are moments in our lives when we're ready, when we're really awakened to the residue that we have been creating, and accepting that while some of it might have even been valid once upon a time, most of it is manufactured. And in that recognition, that's like the beginning of letting it go, and like completely letting it go, and forever. Now, it's not to say a variant won't express in a more sophisticated, different way, but it is categorically different than that transformational moment. I've experienced that enough in my life, and I've witnessed it, to take great refuge in that, to celebrate that can happen.
Yes. He didn't mention in the book, but from what I've read about people who have near-death experiences and have an awakening, it's like they needed that separation from the ego and the pain body to be like, oh, that was never that important and never that big, and, I can be free. And then they live a whole totally different life after that.
A real breakthrough. I think you're talking about a real breakthrough experience where the old just falls away and you don't need it anymore. And that's the rebirth, resurrection.
You shared a personal experience earlier, and you shared, I wasn't on mic, sorry about that. And you shared a personal experience earlier about the witness of the pain body in the car. That made it so vivid for me, because I felt that with you. So I'm going to share a personal story too. I don't normally out myself quite this much, but for most gay people, there are these layers of coming out that happen, and most of them are painful. You got to come out to your family, you got to come out to your friends, you got to come out to yourself, it's a whole thing, a whole big process. And I remember being fairly young even, having underlined all the passages in the Bible that was condemning me to hell, and having really suffered over that for a good long while. There was a grain of sand that finally fell on the balance of the scales that said, you know what? You and God are fine. You and God are good. And everything else, without exception, my parents, my religion, my future, my aspirations to become a dad, all of those concerns melted away forever, because it's like, wait a minute, that piece is seminal in who I am, not only in this moment, but for the rest of my life. And once I sort of stood kind of in that premise, it was kind of quiet at first, but resolute, very private, very personal. And I was a preteen. I was, 12, 13, maybe 14, I don't know, but I was very young when I sort of came to this awareness, and I thought, okay, so I'm going to have to educate my parents about this. I'm going to have to, figure out how to live a life in this conservative world that I was raised in. But that pain body, I had let go of it.
Mm-hmm.
Really let go.
Wow.
So 10 years ago this month was my first time to come to a service here. I sat in the back row on that side. I had just been through a breakup, or I was going through a breakup right then, so I think I cried through the whole service. And then I came back, started taking classes, became a minister, and 10 years ago this month. So it just reminded me of that while you were talking. Wow. And so since we're
happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. My Unity anniversary. And I also would just like to say, I'm just so happy to be part of a community like this particular community, where when I first showed up, Jamaica was singing in the choir, I think, and like on the back row singing, and I think Jamaica, the first time here on a Wednesday, I think you kept your eyes closed pretty much the whole time you were singing, and now look at you, out front, soloist, and just beautiful voice, beautiful presence, just such a gift to our community. And I'm just so happy to be part of a community that nurtures talent, that raises people up, and David has a lot to do with this, I think, working with Jamaica and others. But just that this is a place where we can bring our sorrows, we can bring our sadness, our brokenness, and our gifts, and our skills, and be mentored, and be nurtured, and be nourished, and thrive, and look what we become.
Wow, yes.
I just want to say one more thing. It's not a commentary about what you presented tonight, which was beautiful and very inspiring to me, but it is actually a bit of a commission for the weeks to come, because I know that we're in the midst of a series. But what was coming up for me as I was listening is like, are the occasions when, like that woman who was driving, she didn't have the vocabulary perhaps to know that she was in her pain body. And that's a pretty extreme example of it, but you know what? We do it all the time. You know, we are sometimes in our pain body, and we're not even aware that we're in our pain body, and would probably even become a little defensive were it brought to our attention head on. So I'm curious about that, about how to recognize it in ourselves when we're acting out in our pain body and we're not aware of it, and what tools might be available to us for going through that, and then also how we can hold vigil for people kind of working through, like Eckhart Tolle. That was a little clearer, you know, how we can, whenever we see other people in their pain body, how we might be able to be a resource to them. That was conveyed in what you shared tonight, but how to recognize it in ourselves and how we can be open to having other people support us through that. I want to remain curious about that.
Okay, yeah, okay. I won't answer it then if you want to remain sure, or you're asking me.
Well, I am asking you
Okay.
both. If you want to answer it tonight, that's great. But I just thought it would be fodder for the upcoming weeks too, because I'm guessing it's not just a quick little answer, or is it?
Well, he did say that if you notice somebody's pain in their pain body, to not say that you're in your pain body, because it actually feeds the pain body and makes it more angry and, like you said, defensive. Yes. But he said if you have a trusting relationship, like with your partner, that you can say, if you are conscious enough, right, or this is the practice to become conscious, that I noticed that triggered me. I noticed I'm in my pain body, and ask for some support, and that in you being aware and making the agreement that your partner's also aware and being in dialogue, that it awakens you out of it. It helps to accelerate that awakening. But it needs to be a trusted person, because that is a very sensitive position to be in, because now you're unconscious, right?
And as far as ourselves, I think for me, it's getting in touch with what's going on for me, right? Am I constricting? Am I, is my breathing constricted? Am I making a fist? Am my neck tightening up? Because it happens first in the body, I think, for me. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's happened? Some feelings, some thoughts, something's going on. Yes. Take those deep breaths,
Yes, definitely. Okay, it's a rich topic. We'll leave some for next week.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.